All right, I'm here with Kris Gethin. Kris is legendary in our industry, and we're shooting the world's first shockumentary. We call it a shockumentary because it's not going to be like an ordinary documentary. It's going to be like a documentary on steroids, but totally legal. Kris, tell us a little bit about your company, because I know a lot about you. I know you're one of the rising stars in the industry, and probably 1 out of 10 companies that's doing good now post-COVID.
Yeah, so I'm the CEO of Cage Muscle Supplements, and we've known each other for a long time, and we both have similar backgrounds, I think, where we started supplement companies based on the tests that we did on other companies that we put our value in, and they didn't come out quite as good as we wanted to. So, with that being said, and having a responsibility of putting content out there across social platforms and through video series, I knew that I had a responsibility. Now, I'm telling people to improve their health, their lives, their longevity. And, a lot of the supplement companies out there wasn't supporting that. So that's when, I decided to start Caged Muscle Supplements. And we've been going for about 5 years now. We don't have probably the aspirations to be the biggest supplement company out there, but we want to do something that's right and provide something that I'm going to feel good, giving my supplements to my family, for instance,
Absolutely. I want to congratulate you. You did a fantastic job. I respect you with the aminos and everything like that. Everything's super high quality, making sure your customer gets the best. I really applaud that, because a lot of people don't do that. They don't take time to learn the science. They get this grand idea that they want to make a supplement, and you can't make a great supplement without great science. And so you took the time to do that. And that's why you're here. I wouldn't have anybody in my documentary that I didn't appreciate. I even learned a lot from you. So, kudos for that. And you're really inspiring. Not only what you do in supplements, but what you do, your ice baths and all your other crazy stuff.
Yeah, where's your ice bath? You've got to have one here.
We have a pool that's 98 degrees.
Oh, that'll do then. That'll do.
It has the opposite effect. But tell us a little about these extreme eccentric things you do. I mean, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, because I always try to say, quote unquote, I want to be harder to kill. Because there's going to be a time in my life where I will become a little bit more frail. So if I could slow that down as much as I can, then great. But I'd like to sign up for things that I suck at. I used to compete as a natural bodybuilder, but then I started thinking, okay, could I be a bodybuilder and do Ironman triathlon? I'll probably suck at it, sign me up. So I started competing in Ironman triathlon, did ultramarathon, did Spartan, whatever. But it came from a transcendence effect of having discipline within bodybuilding, then within running, and then within other means such as the ice bath and quantifying sleep, making sure that you don't hit that snooze button, because if you have some sort of procrastination in not doing these things, it's going to have a transcendence effect into other areas of your life. So I wasn't educated at school by any means. I hated school and I sucked at it. But it wasn't until I started studying health and fitness, because I come from a motocross background. And I thought, okay, I'm dealing with all these injuries and pain, but through rehab, now I'm alleviated of it. Now I'm alleviated of the depression that was associated with those injuries. So when I started studying that, I was able to retain the content, because now I've got a passion for it.
Sure.
And it kind of led from there, and that's why, I try, I have so much passion for what we do. And now I have passion for biohacking and how I can improve my health span and longevity. And of course, I just want to pass that on to everybody else.
Do you mind me asking how old you are?
I'll be 46 next week.
Well, you don't look a day over 30.
Yeah, and you're doing pretty well yourself, man. You're looking pretty good as well. And I think that's because we know everything that we do today will either heal our future or harm our future. And, you're doing a fantastic job with that yourself. You come from a science background, and you know what's going to heal your future, and you put all your time and effort into that. You got a beautiful family, and you know that contact and having that purpose of religion or faith, whatever it is great for your health span.
Absolutely. The thing I admire about you, you just said you don't have a formal education,
Yeah.
let's say, but it's learning takes place through enthusiasm and passion about stuff. Look, I taught science for 9 years.
Yeah.
And I have so many kids that'll come up to me, man, I got into nursing and I didn't know the science, and I apologize. I was bad in your class. I'm like, look, then no worries. But again, it's you know, you don't learn, even if you do pass your science class, you didn't really learn anything per se. You just jump through the loopholes to either pass that class or get your degree or whatever. True learning takes place when you're passionate about something. And so even though you might not have that formal education, you have a life education that, you know, it exceeds most others that have the formal education.
Exactly. And like I went to college after and studied international health and sports therapy, which actually got me a job over here in Fort Lauderdale, working on cruise liners in the 90s as a personal trainer and massage therapist, because then I had a passion. But what I've learned since those 3 years in college make that college time, you know, seem like a day, because you learn so much in life through trial and error and through a lot of error more than anything.
Sure. I have 198 college credits. They're for sale at $1 each.
Nice. Yeah, I'll take some of them.
But yeah, so, you know, all my learning took place outside of the university, outside of college. It's not that I didn't.
Hey, what's up? You coming in? Want some attention?
Hey, Rev. It's not that I didn't learn there. I did learn how to write. My writing was atrocious because I was an athlete in high school, and my idea of studying was to study 5 minutes in between class, and I could get C's and B's, and my dad wouldn't beat me with the belt as long as I got a C or B. But that was my idea of studying. And then when I went to college, it was a whole different ballgame. My first paper I wrote, I said, English paper, I go, I'm going to develop this thesis. I'm going to explore this, and I'm going to do this. And I was used to looking in high school, nobody read your paper, right? You just BS. The professor got so mad. There was more red on my paper. And he said, he got so mad. He said, like the commercial says, just do it. That was the Nike, because I said all these things I was going to develop. And I was just BSing. And that paper though, it hit me so hard because I go, this is pathetic. I need to learn how to write. And so from that day on, I took all these extra writing classes at the university and everything, and I became a prolific writer. I have a soon-to-be released book. I actually have a real copy of it because I wanted to see how it laid out, but it has 1,023 scientific references. And so to change that mentality, right, that was my wake-up call, this professor scoring my paper.
Yeah.
A lot of people might have got depressed or whatever, and I go, no, this is a reality check right here, telling me you have learned zero in your undergrad education.
Yeah.
And so then I took an interest in it and made sure I learned. I had my own magazine for 12 years, 2 of my own magazines. I wrote 1 book, and this is my 2nd book, but it's because I buckled down as a freshman in college and learned how to write, right?
Yeah.
So thank God that professor did that, because it was the shock therapy, kind of like jumping in an ice bath that everybody needs.
Yeah. And, that's where a lot of people learn a lot of their success from constructive criticism. Some people will, like you said, they'll get depressed on that and they'll turn the other way, or other people will take that as a positive and learn and apply that. And we have some similarities there for sure, because like I wasn't a writer by any means, but years ago I was working for Joe Weider for Flex and Muscle and Fitness. I didn't know how to write, and prior to that, I bought Merriam-Webster's book on journalistic writing and taught myself how to write, because I thought that's the only way I'm going to get published. I would read books, and I still read a lot of books, and that's how I can learn from observation to apply. But then that allowed me to get into the publications, get a job, and move to LA, and then put out books myself. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And because, we're trying to find a way to reach more people through different means, different platforms. Luckily, we have social platforms today to reach out to more people. And if you can do it through, your book would be an inspiration for sure, because there's so many people want to learn, not only just from a scientific standpoint, a fitness point of view, but from a business point of view as well. Like, what goes into creating a business? And that's one thing I wanted to ask you. Like, I know that you've never really come from beginnings of where you've had anything given to you on a golden platter. Like, you were sleeping on an air mattress at one point. Was that after you were a science teacher and you decided to transition into the supplemental industry?
Yeah, so what I was doing, I taught school for 9 years, and when I was 23 and I was teaching high school, everyone's going, oh yeah, you're a teacher. It was like this big cool thing, right? And then 5 years later, everyone's going, you're a teacher? It was a job, unfortunately, that was kind of frowned upon, because teachers and police officers, they're kind of like, they're so important in our society, but we don't pay attention to them enough. A teacher should be one of the most important things ever because they're educating our kids, right? So I was teaching science and everything, and I was learning that, look, everybody in the scientific field is making like 10 times more money than me, and I can barely pay my rent every month. And so what I did to live my dream, I didn't know what I was doing, but I said, I'm gonna start a supplement store, and I'm gonna live in the back of it, because I was doing people's diets and supplements and everything. And I was buying from a place called Supplement Wholesalers, I was buying $700 worth of supplements a week. And I go, well, this is ridiculous. I should have my own supplement store. And that's what I did. So I started this little store. It was literally 350 square feet. It's weird when I say that, because now we're talking, we have over 2.6 million square feet. So I got to take off that thousands off there. So it's just 350 where the store was, and 350 in the back where I slept. And so I would take that money instead of renting my apartment, and every day I'd buy a little more supplements, a little more supplements. And 2 weeks into it, we did $700 in sales in one day. This place was out in the middle of nowhere. It was behind kind of like the dumpsters in Winn-Dixie. There was a parking lot, and it was just, it wasn't good. But I said, wow, my check for the month, and I've said this before on video, was $1,900 for a full month of teaching in the Broward County public school system. It's not like a private school. And $700, the light went off in my head, and I go, there's something to this. And I had no money, so I'd take my business cards and I'd put them in every Flex magazine, every Shape, at Publix and all the stores. I would give them out at the gym. I would put them everywhere, give them to every trainer. And one day this Indian guy came in, and it's the Seminole Indians here, they get, quite a bit of money every month from their governmental program and stuff, so they have a lot of extra spending money. And he looked pretty juiced up. He was turning purple, sleeveless shirt on, and he looks like he wants to kill somebody. And I'm like, I better not aggravate this guy. And he goes, I had to come in here, and I open Flex, and a card falls out. My trainer gives me a card. I'm going out, someone else gives me a card, but I had no money. That was the only way I could do it. And I think he wanted to come in there because he wanted to kick my ass. But at the same time, he goes, what the heck is this? But this guy's putting business cards in Flex magazine. When you open it, it would fall out. You'd have to look at it. So he came in, and he became one of my best customers, advocate, because I was able to answer his question. He was a big guy, and he wanted that knowledge, and everybody was shopping for knowledge. And so even back then, 27 years ago, I made sure I was number one in this key thing called knowledge. Can I deliver the knowledge? Did I have the latest supplements? And as you may have read, there were some tragic things that happened from me selling other people's supplements. Yeah, that's right. Which caused me to say, wait a minute, if I'm recommending you and everybody else supplements, hey, I got to make sure these are right, because the products on the market, it hasn't changed much. They just don't meet label claim. I mean, a major protein company you might know of, I won't say their name, but it begins with a D. Their protein was tested and it was 30% under label claim. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's somebody who's not passionate about their brand, that just wants to make money. That's not you, and that's not me. We take all of our products, right? And we make them for us first. And if they meet our stringent standards, then of course, everybody else within that genre, athletes, bodybuilders, people wanting to increase mental capacity, nootropics, all that, if they pass your standard and my standard, then they are definitely good enough for everybody else. And that's the issue that we have, because unfortunately you have to walk into a supplement store these days, and if you're an uneducated consumer, you have to put your hands together and hope what you're actually purchasing is what is on the label. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, it just doesn't meet the label claim, because people are getting into this industry, like you said, not for the longevity, it's for that quick buck. They don't have the foresight to say, am I leaving a legacy when I put this product on the shelf? Or is it something that could possibly be taken off in several years? And until then, the consumer's just not going to know any better. Right, and like we spoke before, if you in a model like GNC, where people are spiffed $10 on a protein product, there's not even that much profit in that product. And so if you're spiffed on that, it's the cheapest, lowest grade product ever. That consumer goes in there, he gets ripped off, and he either leaves the supplement industry altogether, right?
Yeah.
Or he never goes back to GNC again. And so that's kind of the tragedy of all these cheap brands. But all that's going away. I mean, recently GNC filed bankruptcy. I think they'll come back with less stores and hopefully change that business model that's been ingrained in them for, many, many decades.
So what do you feel needs to change in the supplement industry as a whole in order for it to get the respect that it deserves?
Well, first of all, there's just too many brands. There's too many people that don't know what they're doing. I think there's a handful of companies that know what they're doing, that are doing well, and that create superior products that are backed by science. With us, we are currently working on our 29th double-blind, placebo-controlled gold standard study on our products. They won't do studies because they know if they do them, they'll fail, and that'll be a part of the permanent record. So this is hugely important is, look, when I create a product and I know all the science and I know it's backed by science, and I've been writing this book for 13 years, it kicked my ass because the more knowledge I gained, the more I knew I didn't know, right? And it's like in the beginning you think, oh, I know everything. And the more you write and the more you learn, you're like, I don't know a fraction of what there is to know, but I try to make it at least where I know way more than everybody else. And just passion, enthusiasm, a little bit of competition, right? Where you want to have that knowledge base, but to create these great products that are safe for consumers, that are efficacious, and that I could put them, the best thing I could ever do is take one of my products, do a university study and show and prove, hey, it works. It increases muscle protein synthesis, or like Shotgun, it increased all 5 muscle genes, they're called myogenic regulatory factors, to 515%. I call it ultragenomics. So you can alter your genes through nutrition, we know that, through training, and now through supplementation. It was proven at Baylor University with this study where it altered 5 different muscle genes. But I call it ultragenomics, where you combine all 3 of these concepts together to get a magnified or synergistic effect on your genes, to flip on them positive genes.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we always try to live by is like, don't guess, test.
Right.
Test, and then you can put out products, like you said, it's backed up with science research of the efficacious dosages and the sources of where those supplements come from.
Source is very important.
Exactly. Source is very,
there's
very
a lot
important.
of contaminated creatine and everything like
Exactly.
that. It's bad news.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you then, with your supplement companies, with VPX and Redline and Shotgun and then Bang, like, has it always been a positive trajectory, or has there been a bumpy ride along the way? Is there anything that you think back, wow, that was a mistake that I made, and I really learned from that has got me to where I am today?
It's an extremely interesting question. So I always say the blessing became the curse. So from the first day I did business, we had 17 years of year over year uninterrupted growth. Then reality hit. We're still in a lawsuit. It's been 9 years we're in this lawsuit.
Still now?
Yes.
Wow.
So we are a vice president of sales, and we have an anti-poaching rule, which means you can't just poach our entire sales team, right? Obviously, it's good for business where somebody who comes in is not allowed to do that. And a 1-year non-compete, which is fair to everybody, because we're going to give you all of our key information. So no, you can't go over to Kris Gethin's company and say, here's what Jack Owoc's plans are for the next 3 years. It's just not fair. So this vice president of sales we hired, he was big in the industry and everything like that. And from day one, he plotted to just take and steal information and everything. And what he did was, it was extremely interesting. He came in and none of our sales team liked him. But there was this one night in Vegas, which I don't know what happened, but you can imagine, where then all of a sudden they became thicker than thieves. And so he poached our entire sales team, everybody, stole our sales database, everything like that. And I told him to go buy a company called Pro Subs, Professional Supplements by Art Atwood.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Art had passed away.
Yeah.
Art was in our booth and I was talking to him, and I thought it would be interesting to have run that as like the hardcore line and then also run ours. But instead he went and purchased it with his brother, and that's called usurping a corporate business opportunity. Yeah. Obviously it's not not allowed when he's working for us. So he usurped that corporate business opportunity that we had given him, and he bought it with his brother. And when I asked him how it went, he said, well, they didn't want to sell and blah, blah, blah. I thought it was a little strange. He was like beating around the bush. Shortly thereafter, he poached our entire sales team, took our entire sales database. He used everything that we had built in all of our standard operating procedures, sales procedures, contact lists that we had for the last 17, 18 years since we started. All of our relationships, told everybody we were going out of business, and this is the new company. And we've been in a lawsuit 9 years. I don't cry sour grapes over it. They're in trouble. They've lied under oath over 120 times. But it was a great learning experience. And the blessing became the curse, because when they did that, we were ill-equipped. I was ill-equipped. I was ill-trained to deal with this type of kind of catastrophic event, because I never had to learn. I'll be truthful with you. I was a little bit cocky, kind of like you are, Kris.
Hey, looks are deceiving, buddy.
I'm just kidding. But I when you have year-over-year growth, right? Sales cures everything.
Yeah.
You're not going to tell me I need to learn this or do this or learn this. Money becomes very complicated. Right now we're working with billions of dollars. It's all, you think it's just money, but it's extremely complicated. Sure. Right. And so we started going down in sales. And so I couldn't throw money at every problem. I actually had to solve these problems, but it was a great learning experience. I look at it as God preparing me and saying, you're not ready for what I have, these blessings I have for you. You're not prepared. You're arrogant. You think you know everything just because you've been that successful for 17 years doing 60 million in sales and everything. You're not ready. And so God humbled me. And we were literally at one point going out of business. I was going to have to sell the business for 12 million and get to keep bang. You're doing 60 million in sales and you have to sell for 12. That's kind of a pretty hard slap in the face. And, a lot of different things transpired. I don't know if you're biblical or not, but is God will always take you down to that last second, right? He sits on the throne. If you try to sit on the throne like I did, you're going to be in trouble. If you put something else on the throne, I was putting VPX on the throne, God's going to smack it off the throne. He's not going to share the throne. He sits on the throne. And so he said, you got to get it off the throne. And so I come in one day, and we're ready to sell, and the bankers are downstairs, and the company that's going to buy it's downstairs. And, some interesting things happened right at that minute, but I had committed to do God's will. I go, okay, I'm selling the business, false God, got to get rid of it, blah, blah, blah. But God will only stay thy hand like he stayed, I think it's Isaac and Jacob in the Bible when he's going to stab his son. Only at that last second he stayed his hand, right? So last second I go in, they go, the buyers are downstairs, they shaved $600,000 off the price. I go, what, for what? He goes, because they couldn't, you're down to the last hour and the bank has 5 forbearances. And if you don't close, the bank's gonna call the note. There was a $3.2 million note and you won't have any business. I go, okay. About that time, so I'm sitting in the upstairs conference room, they're downstairs, and the VP of sales comes in and they were doing this due diligence, and he goes, I'm not working for them. He goes, they're arrogant, they did this, and start throwing all kinds of F-bombs. 5 minutes later, my operation manager comes in because they were part of the deal. Like when they bought the company, they needed these key individuals. They already were doing 600 million in supplement sales of other supplements, but they wanted a sports nutrition line. And so he said, I'm not working for those. So the deal was falling apart literally at the last second. And the our attorney says, well, you can't sign the deal. And I said, why? He said, because there's exhibits missing. And he goes, you can't refer to exhibits A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and they not be in the document. If you sign it, the exhibits are missing. It's an invalid contract. So I'm just smiling like at God, and I go, okay, this is funny. They say God has a sense of humor, because now that I went down to the last second, the deal's literally off the table because I can't sign the contract. The 2 key individuals that were part of the deal said, we ain't going, F these guys. And it was a little more energy behind it than I'm saying, but it wasn't pretty. And then later, so we told everybody to leave, we're not selling. They kind of freaked out and the bank started, it was a Friday. So, they were getting ready to foreclose the following week. But I called another bank called Marquette, and Marquette does factoring. And they go, how much raw materials do you have, and blah, blah, blah. And we showed them, and it was over $4 million. They go, we'll lend you 80% on that right now. What's the bank note? And we said 3.2 million. Right?
Yeah.
They took out the bank, but here's what happened that made it so much better is they pay you, as soon as you get a purchase order, they pay you within hours, 80% of it, right? You still get the full amount minus 4%, but you get it after, in 30 days, but you get 80% right away. So we had no cash flow because the bank with these forbearances kept restricting our cash flow. But because they paid that 80% up front, the business started exploding again. And the banks told me at the time, they go, don't come out with any new products. As soon as they left, we're tasting Bang. I knew Bang was it. I just had this feeling being in 27 years. I knew it was going to be a hit as soon as the bankers left. They're risk adverse. We take risks, and that's why we're successful. And we were developing Bang. And then as our cash flow came back and the bank was out of it, who had the noose around our neck, literally, because they kept restricting cash flow, we now had cash flow. We started growing again. Last year, we did 1.28 billion in sales. This year, we're on track to do 2.1 billion. And this is something I say to you, I've never disclosed numbers before, but it's part of the IRI data. You can't lie because they're tracking your sales. Even though we're not a public company, you could see. And the report comes out every week, where you are in sales, what you're doing in sales. And the deal with Pepsi is in 3 years, we'll be doing 5 billion annually just in Bang sales. And we're already Pepsi's 4th largest brand. So I like to witness to God. I'm not on for God. If somebody doesn't believe in God, that's their own thing. But I'm like, you can't really believe that Jack Owoc sleeping on an air mattress went from that to this multi-billion-dollar company. I could probably get a check right now for like 7 or 8 billion for the company. You can't believe that I did that on my own. If you do, I feel sorry for you because it's just not true. It took God, it took a bunch of other key individuals to get to where we're going because God makes us as such as no man's an island. You can't really do much by yourself. If I took your whole staff away, you're like, what am I going to do, right? And, I'm sure your fiance helps you a lot and everything too. You just can't operate without God and without other people. We're just designed that way. We're wired that way. And so that's kind of how that transitioned. But I had to get beat up first. I had to learn all these critical things that I didn't learn because our success was so great. And in those few years, boy, it was a huge learning experience and very, very humbling.
So let me ask you this then. So when you're at that low point, when you're thinking, wow, I may have to sell this company now for 12 mil, even though we're doing 60 mil annually, at any time then, did you question your faith? Are you questioning God because you've been put into this predicament, which, the rug has been pulled out from underneath you? Did you question it at any time, or did you always have faith?
I always had faith because I knew exactly what I was doing. I knew that I wasn't following the word. We always put, the Bible says, no false gods. Don't put any false gods before me. I am a jealous God. So whether it's football, soccer, supplements, whatever it is, this house, it could be anything. If you put it before God, he's going to crush it, right? And I knew that. And I knew God had a plan for me. And look, how bad is it having 12 million cash in the bank and still having Bang energy?
Yeah.
See, that was my one sticking point. I wouldn't give up Bang, and Bang wasn't doing any sales, and they didn't even want it. Yeah. But I instinctively knew, look, if I could walk away with 12 million plus Bang, I would have probably even grown faster because I didn't have to have all these other SKUs and everything else to worry about. So I've always kind of known God's plan for me, and when you're in touch with it, when you're getting off course like that. And it humbles you and brings you to where you need to be. So when you have this success, right, you don't lose it. I've been sued by Monster and Red Bull 11 years ago, right, to prepare me for the lawsuits 6 that we're in with Monster right now. That everything God's doing in your life prepares you for where you're going. But if you're not prepared, you really don't want it, because the prayer is, God, open the doors of opportunity that need to be open, but More importantly, close the doors that need to be closed. Because you and I want to open all these doors, and if we don't ask for God's guidance to open them, God will let you open them. He's a gentleman, and then you get in a lot of trouble, right?
Yeah.
And so I rely on that a lot.
Okay, yeah.
It's a humbling. It's like, look, we're high test driven individuals. We're CEOs of company. We call all the shots, but it's very humbling to go, well, God's the real CEO, because if you get cocky and arrogant and think that you are, like the Bible says, rely not on your own understanding. And I always tell people, look, God's all powerful, almighty, but the main thing is he's all knowing. So Kris and Jack might get it right 80% of the time, but if you rely on God and he's all knowing, then you get it right 100% of the time. Monster has over 250 federal lawsuits, and they just wipe people out financially. They hit us with 1 million documents. Our attorney said, that's going to cost you $400,000. They hit us with another 1 million. It's called a document dump. Then they hit us with 1.5 million. So if it was you, and I don't know your financial position, but I seriously doubt you would be able to pay attorneys $5 million just to go through the documents.
Yes, of course.
So they put people out of business, right, financially. They have all these legal tactics. The owner, Rodney Sachs, is a former attorney. They're more a legal entity than they are a energy drink company. But we were able to withstand this. We hired all these firms. We're going against them. We pierced all 5 of their corporate veils. Nobody's ever been able to do that. But it's the David and Goliath scenario where God puts that giant in your path, that Goliath. You got to slay him in order to go to your destiny. You can't go around him. You can't go over him. You got to slay him. And you'll always have giants that come before you, and you can sit back and cower. I don't think you're the guy to do that. Or you can slay that giant. But if you don't slay him, you cannot fulfill your destiny and your purpose and experience God's mind-blowing blessings. God says, I will bless you beyond your wildest imagination. Look at this house. I mean, I could never imagine this house, and or any of these like billions of dollars, and we deal with hundreds of millions of dollars like every day. It's just mind-blowing, right? But I'm not odd for God. I sin just like anybody else. All the same sins. They don't just go away, right? But I try to give like a testimony that inspires people to say, look, this is how I do it. It doesn't mean you have to do it. I have people come on my page sometimes. They'll go, I worship Satan. I know you're into God, but bang's still cool. I'm still going to drink it. So that's how I put it, is just to kind of inspire people through your actions rather than go, Kris, don't do this, don't do that. Look, if you're inspired by my actions, that's great. Hopefully that makes you a better person. I'm inspired by you, straight up. I love what you do. You're passionate. You bring up all these new ideas. I see you doing like crazy stuff, but it appears crazy to everybody else. But in reality, it's all these things, like you say, that make you hard to kill, right? Because this planet and this world's trying to kill you.
Yeah.
They're poisoning you.
Exactly. And you're just trying to turn people's impossibilities into possibilities, because people learn by observation, and they see you doing these things, and then they understand that within themselves, well, maybe there's a possibility for me then. That's what we're just trying to put out there. And luckily we do have these platforms for people to observe from. But now, with what you've done with the VPX, and you said, you had all these SKUs that you had to worry about, and you still was able to grow Bang. Did you do something different with Bang than you had with your previous SKUs?
Absolutely. So one of the things for this radical growth is to do everything differently. I tell people, look, if you do things better and what you're doing sucks or it's mediocre, now you just suck on steroids. Yeah. You still suck, right? Yeah. But remember, and you got to make a conscious effort, you got to do things differently. So when everybody's zigging, like the book says, you have to zag, right? Yeah. You have to be that purple cow in the field of lame brown cows. All these things I take seriously. So when we came out with our drink, right? Super creatine covalently attached to leucine. The science on leucine to increase protein synthesis. Creatine also increases protein synthesis. Creatine also blocks, people don't know this, regular creatine It blocks 60% of circulating myostatin in the muscle. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
People take creatine for granted. It's a miracle supplement.
And it's a nootropic effect as well.
And even regular creatine, right? It's good for the brain. It keeps the brain alive during injury, like in a football impact or a car accident. It's just amazing. And I don't even know what we were talking about because I went off on a tangent.
No, that's okay. No, your marketing from your other SKUs, you know, how it changed when you started Bang.
Yeah, so with Bang, I saw, look, this grab and go thing. Everybody was telling me in the beverage industry, right, because we cut our teeth with Redline in late 2004 with the drink.
Yeah.
We got in Walmart within 6 months because he went to every GNC, the buyer. That was his tactic to learn what was next, right, for Walmart. 12 out of 12 GNC says, no, you got to have this drink. It's number one here. It's great. He said, 12 out of 12. He goes, I'm supposed to tell you, look, you're going to fail and beat you down. And he was drinking it. And he was a very heavy guy. And you remember back then it was strong.
Yeah.
It was in a metal can.
Yeah.
He was eating popcorn with sodium. And I thought this guy was going to explode. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we better sign this deal. But so we got in Walmart right out of the gate. They put it on the bottom shelf because they go, oh, these guys are new, blah, blah, blah. But it's sold, and to eventually it sold so much they put it on the top shelf because then they could stack it real high because a lot of guys would just come in because it was cheap and just wipe the whole thing into their basket and give it to their friends and everybody else. So a lot of insiders that didn't like Monster and Red Bull that were high up in the beverage industry, I can't mention their names, but with huge corporations, said you got to come out with 16-ounce carbonated over and over and over. But I instinctively knew, look, unless I come out, and I was working on super creatine, right, a water-stable and highly soluble creatine, look, unless we come out with something novel and super cutting edge, we're not going to be able to compete against them. And we won both lawsuits against them. They had to back down. They knew we were coming. Their worst nightmare, and they tried to crush Redline back then, right? We were in these lawsuits. And instinctively on their part, I got to give them credit. They go, hey, if this guy ever gets distribution, and they told me that when they were drunk, we will crush them. And they told me this at a trade show that I spoke at Bev Forum, where they won the over $1 billion award. And Mark Hall, one of the principals of Monster, says, all you guys got to concentrate on is distribution. He goes, we're losing, I'll never forget this, we're losing sleep in LA over you guys for Redline. And that's why they had to crush us. Now their worst nightmare has come true. The worst nightmare was, hey, if this guy gets going, if this company gets going, we're going to be in trouble. And we've gained as high as 10% market share. Each point in the energy drink industry is worth 150 million. So you figure it out. You just multiply, that number by that and figure out how many billion you're doing in sales each point. And so now with Pepsi, our midterm goal is to get to 20 points, and that's what we're working on now.
Right.
So yes, doing things radically different. The pills, the powders, I told you before when we were conversating, look, people are getting pill and powder fatigue. So now more bars are selling, more drinks are selling. When the economy gets better, it does even better, as you know, because people have those few bucks. But people, there's no resistance to parting with $2 or $3, whereas a good pre-workout that's 30 or 40 bucks is a different story.
Yeah, exactly. And as we spoke earlier, that's what I mentioned about the same with my friend's supplement company in the UK. People are doing people are purchasing those single grab and goes.
Yeah, so I invite you to get into that. Encourage you to get into it. You're my friend. I want to see you do well. Is to break into that grab and go industry. I mean. It will thrust you into a whole new world because eventually, yes, this sports nutrition industry is very cool, right? But if you want to reach the masses like we do, you have to do things different, cut that umbilical cord, that emotional umbilical cord to sports nutrition and all this hardcore mumbo jumbo, and you have to pivot into that industry, and you do that by items that are grab and go items. Right? It's what you've been doing all the time, but instead of a powder, a drink, a bar, etc.
Exactly, and focus on a different form of distribution, that mass distribution.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when it comes to your distribution, who is your largest platform that allows you to get out there now to that mass audience? And has that had a positive effect, I can only assume so, with your other SKUs that you have now with VPX?
Say that again.
With your platform, with your product now, who's your biggest platform that you sell through right now? And has that had a positive effect with all the hype that you have around Bang onto your other SKUs with VPX?
That's the best question you asked today, but it's going to require a little hit of this.
Okay, you go for it. Hit it, buddy.
So what we did is revolutionary. We signed a deal with Pepsi. It's distribution only of Bang only.
Yeah.
Right? And we're monitoring them very closely and we're working with them. And in that, so far we paid $101 million to our former distribution network because in the beverage industry, there's what's called a case buyout where we have to pay you by contract for the cases you sold. So if it's $6 a case and you sold 1 million cases in the last 12 months, I cut you a check for $6 million. Right now, we've cut checks to $101 million to buy out our old distribution network, which consisted of a lot of Anheuser-Busch houses and other entities like that to distribute. And then we turned that over to Pepsi, right? So that process is 90% done. But instead of getting rid of our old distribution network, we have these allied brands that you're drinking there, like New Fusion. Redline we launched in a 12 ounce. And so I call those allied brands, right? So we work with Pepsi to do Bang, but we also are launching these allied brands in the AB system because it's been a great system. We kept the relationship good by paying them out. A lot of people don't pay when it comes time to pay. Paying them out, paying them right away, and also saying, look, if you have any product left in your warehouse, we'll buy that from you and we'll take it off your hands. Keep that relationship good. Don't burn people. Don't just say you're Christian and then beat somebody up like their former distributor partner did. We won't mention their name, but we mentioned it earlier. And then keep the relationship good. And so now they wanted to fill that Bang void. I mean, a lot of them, it was their number one selling product within their portfolio, their non-alcoholic portfolio. So Anheuser-Busch, obviously they sell beer, but they make a significant amount of money on non-alcoholics because beer's dying. It's losing about 4% a year. So we're using them simultaneously with Pepsi to distribute these other brands. Now, in addition to that, we have our own distribution that of that 1.28 billion last year, we did 15% of that. So we're a force within ourselves. But just to make sure, look, if things go south with Pepsi, we have to have a backup plan. I can't go, oh, Pepsi did this. You can't make an excuse like that. And because there's so much money riding on the thing here. But to build up those allied brands as well with this other distribution network. And we did a launch in Florida in the face of COVID. We did it very safely, though, where we put 212 people on the streets. Everybody had to come. And for 2 weeks straight, 200 people, 12 people in the market. Pepsi put 80. And we just took over the state of Florida. Case stacks in every store. It was just mind-blowing. But again, you have to act in the face of fear. You have to confront your giant. You have to slay your giant. Right now, COVID is the giant, no matter what you believe about it. But it also it was an exercise for our staff to really help them and to say, look, you can't sit back and cower in your room. I knew some people would quit. 3 people quit. That's fine. We'll help them. We'll find them another job. But it's like you got to get out there because the sickness occurs when you're staying home and not getting out. When you're getting out in the sun, the Florida sun, and your vitamin D, nitric oxide, all that, you're being safe. But that's what makes you a healthy company. When you're acting in the face of fear, when everybody else is down and cowering in fear, look, if you have God on your side, you don't cower in fear. You get out there and do it. And that's what we did. And it was literally just the past 2 weeks. And so again, you set a goal, 20% distribution, each percentage point's worth 150 million, but that's just in Florida. And then to take that model and scale it up in other states. A lot of people come to me for supplement advice. I was just talking to Kevin LeBron today.
Oh, yeah.
And they ask questions and I go, look, find something it's pretty simple. I mean, it's not simple. The concept's simple. Find something that generates an ROI and then scale it up, whatever that is for you. What it was for us, it was social media. We found a way to make it work, right? Not many people have been able to monetize that, but it could be anything. If it's advertising on Facebook or whatever, if it's going to generate like a 30% ROI, just keep throwing fuel on it, more. And I'm sure you know that, but I'm just stating the obvious.
Yeah, for sure. But, it isn't just so obvious to a lot of people out here, because there's a lot of people watching and listening to this now that either have supplement companies or want to start a supplement company or want to start any company and be an entrepreneur themselves. What do you feel that people need to do in order to see a certain amount of success? Maybe it's not going to be this is something they can't relate to, but if they want to have their own business, and maybe, during the time of COVID, they're doing it from home, what is the advice that you give to people because I'm sure you get that question all the time. If people want to be a success within this industry or outside of it, what are the main factors that you've learned that you teach others?
It's an extremely difficult question because everybody's different, right?
It's a big question.
So my belief is that God made every single one of us, 7.7 billion people, to do something better than anybody else in the world.
Yeah.
And I think the most empowering thing is, look, if God made me to develop supplements and great products for people and serve the world and serve them great, He designed me specifically for that. So if you know that, look, it's just not Kris Gethin's idea within himself to make these great products and to help the world, to change the world, to give people guidance, to inspire people. God put that in your heart. He designed you that way. He designed you specifically for that purpose. Now you're like, whoa, well, you're empowered to do anything. You can run through this window if you want. Right? Because God designed you for that. It's way higher than just Kris Gethin doing it on his own effort or anybody else. But you got to find what God designed you to do, what your purpose is, right? And if something's in your heart and it's positive and it's helping others, that's what God designed you to do. That's your purpose. And now you can run with it, know that you're empowered by God, that He made you to do that. To me, that's like the X factor that Monster doesn't exist. Is like, they made 250 companies go away. Federal lawsuits, they wiped them off the face of the earth. They never beat them, they just outspend them, and legal tactics and everything else. And they're going, okay, how is this punk Jack Owoc, I'm just saying how they see me, how is he whipping our ass? Well, they're not fighting against me. God fights your battles. God wants to fight your battles. And they can't win. You see them as different. It's like when Caleb went into the land of milk and honey and the giants, everybody else saw them as these 7-foot giants in the Bible, and they couldn't go into the Israelites couldn't go into the land of milk and honey. But Caleb said he saw them as grasshoppers because he saw them through God's eyes, and he goes, God will crush these giants, right? And that's how you have to see them. I see a monster through God's eyes. Rodney Saxer's nothing. He has a horrible drink. It caused 18 deaths, 10 heart attacks, 105 adverse event reports. Are you kidding me? Why is it even on the market? And there's studies, not my studies, studies that show that it actually zaps your energy because it's got, like 57 grams of sugar. So you know this. You had your insulin thing on your arm. Yeah, I dare you to drink a Monster Energy drink. It'll put you out. So you drink it, right? And so you overexpress or overproduce insulin. What does insulin do? Drives your blood sugar dangerously low, right? Mm-hmm. So it actually zaps your energy. The caffeine can't overcome that. And so it's actually an anti-energy drink, and we're claiming in a lawsuit that you owe consumers, Monster owes consumers billions of dollars because their drink is proven by science to actually zap your energy. Right? It's it's an anti-energy drink. Right? It drives your sugar so low that what happens, you crash.
Yeah.
They hate when we use the word crash. They sue anybody that uses it because they know that is their ultimate pitfall that can bring them down.
Yeah, and unfortunately, maybe they're using that as a means to get people addicted to that because they think, God, if I'm dealing with a crash, I'd better go and purchase another drink, not knowing that they're going to create that crash yet again, and insulin resistance. And insulin resistance, as we know, is with an epidemic and pandemic in itself within this country. We're talking about COVID-19 and social distancing or whatever, not knowing that immune response is within themselves and the decisions that they make and what they put to their mouths. And unfortunately, there's just not enough education putting out there. And what I love about what you do is that you put out so much education out there. I don't know anybody within this industry of the sports energy drink industry that's putting out science. that is educating people at the same time as inspiring people through amazing marketing, through amazing flavors, but not through education. And that's something that you've done very, very well. And is this something that you continuously to focus on, that you invest your time and money in, is education through the science studies that you put out?
Well, first of all, thank you. That's a massive compliment coming from you. And you also do that. I want to go on the record. You're very tenacious about educating people and learning yourself and then conveying that to others. Yeah, so the book right now, it's taken 13 years because I kept learning more. I kept doing new university studies. And when the study comes out, like on Redline, and it increases psychomotor vigilance, right? I go, I got to publish this, right? I got to put it in the book. And you keep holding up the book because you want to get it in there. But yes, I take it upon myself to educate people. And the book, the exercise, the discipline and effort we talked about earlier, to write that book and to learn all that and to put all those scientific references. So what you're saying is irrefutable. Everything I say is backed up with a reference. Mm-hmm. I don't just talk like a trainer in the gym, you know, and just spout off things because
or bro science.
Right, or bro science. I talk a lot about bro science in the book. But yeah, so I even told my wife, I go, I could throw this book in the garbage right now. I could throw it in the garbage and be done with it, right? Because what I learned from it is what put our company where it is today. So, but I said, this book is my gift to everybody else, right? My gift of education and everything else, and not writing it for all the PhDs that are my friends out there and all the universities. They're the zillionth of 1%. It's written, and it takes a lot of discipline to do this, to discipline yourself to make it so that the normal person can understand it. Because if you ever read a study, you got to read it like 5 times because it's all this words and jargon and abbreviations. And I'm going, all these PhDs, they need a renaissance, and they need to restructure and do things different and make it so that everybody else can understand it. I even got to read it 5 times. I go, will you stop with all this nonsense? Yeah. Right? And so that's what the book is. It's really hard. Like, look, we know all the scientific terms. It could have been written a long time ago and very easy if I did that, right? And not cared whether people understood it or not, because we talk on a different level. But I go, no, you got to discipline yourself. And it's hard to word all these scientific terms out and different things like myogenic regulatory factors and mind-blowing things at the genetic level and bring them down to where the normal person can understand it. Because it's not what you know. This is what I learned in college. It's not what you know, it's what you can convey to others that's most important, that has value, right? Chemistry teacher in college, he'd write on the board, right? And he's frantically copying it. He's writing on this board, and you know he's going to erase this board. And I'm like, that's not teaching. He may know it, but he can't convey that knowledge. Yeah. So in a sense, he's worthless. So it's a lot of discipline to convey something as complex as science, chemistry, physiology, stuff like that to the average person.
Yeah, and put it in a digestible form that people can get inspired by, to understand and to apply to themselves. And I think that, you know, that's the differentiator that you created within this market for sure, not just from your other SKUs, but within this minefield, because people just see the product on the shelves and they don't really understand what they're going for. But with that understanding and that relatability, then their chances are they're going to pick it up and apply it and take care of it themselves. And, you know, within this industry where there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of conflicting information, I think what you've done very well is just part the waters for people to kind of understand. But not only that, you have branched out. You've definitely put your branches out there, but you're still taking those roots much deeper as well. And I think that's something that's refreshing, because like this company that I'm wearing right now, Better Bodies, the gentleman, Michael Johansson, who owns Better Bodies, also owns Gasp Clothing. So this clothing brand has put his branches out there. But Gasp sells so much more, even though they don't do a women's line as well as a men's line. They're not distributed in as many places because they put a feeling behind that brand. And I think that's what you've done very, very well with Bang, because when you pick up that product, you're not just thinking, okay, this is the one that I've chosen because of that flavor, because of the color, because you've put a feeling behind it. Like you've done that very well with your marketing. When you go to the events, you see there's a feeling around that expo. There's a feeling with the persona that you've put out online as well, with your ambassadors, with your athletes. Like, is that something that you always try to put out there? You attach a feeling to the product or to that flavor or to that new SKU?
Absolutely. So we call it experiential marketing, creating that experience from the consumer.
Yeah.
So what I did, I think that's pivotal is, I can't say what I did, what our team did is I said, look, I want to, I'm sure back in the day you went to a few clubs or whatever, a few festivals. Yeah. I go, you're standing out in that line, right? And all these so-called elite people are going in first, and all the pretty girls are going in first. And I go, that feeling of that person standing in line, we're getting rid of. Everybody that comes to this expo gets a VIP experience. If they're in line, you grab them a cold bang. All barriers between you and the person, like all the other booths have, take them down. They're in the booth. We're crowd surfing. And that's that experiential marketing. And everything's positive. Nothing can be negative. Because if you look at Monster, it's this black negative 666. It even says something about unleash the beast on the side. It's all this demonic stuff that's negative. And people don't like it. People want to be positive. They want to be uplifted. And that's what we did. And so all the branding, super bright, highly saturated colors and everything like that. And so that's what we strive for, and that's what we do, is to have everybody that comes in the booth or by the booth a VIP experience. Whereas you go to that brand with the letters MT, it's like it's all bodybuilders in there. A kid will come to them and ask them, and they'll go, what supplements do you use? And the bodybuilders, the kid like, are you serious? I don't use these supplements. And it's very negative, right? Yeah. It's very selfish. Bodybuilding's selfish. It's self-centered, and it just leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth. So the further we pivoted away from bodybuilding, the more successful we got. We had this great learning experience once where this guy's pretty jacked in our booth. Really good guy, works hard. He has his own restaurants. He's one of our influencers. And he goes, can my nephew come on stage? He just won the light heavies. And I go, absolutely. He was proud. He had his trophy. I used to like bodybuilding and stuff. And he got up there and he posed, and everybody booed him because the message that we promote is contra to what bodybuilding is, where it's super selfish. And unfortunately, everybody's been treated bad in the gym by a bodybuilder who either took the weights from them or brushed them away or
kicked the sand in the face.
Or right, or because they're juiced or they're low carbon or something. And so they created this negative aura. And I knew that, hey, we had to do things different and burst out of this. And so the further we got away from bodybuilding, the better we did. I was with Eric Hillman at his stage, and he goes, this is mind-blowing. He goes, you guys pivoted. This is unbelievable. The energy. And everybody would sit back that was part of this bodybuilding community and realize we've failed. We failed with these bodybuilding shows because we've never pivoted. It's negative. It's self-centered. I don't know how you would pivot, but it just, you know how it is. It's just, everything's about the self. And we're the opposite. We're about giving. Give us money. We give out $250,000 worth of product at every show.
Oh, yeah, I know.
It takes 22 people loading the stage and giving, and then doing a dance routine and a shuffling routine and whatever we're doing. And they're loading, and we just keep giving out that product. And when we leave a city, that city is set for life. You go to the 7-Elevens or whatever, and it's on fire.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a party there.
Yeah.
I've seen that plenty of times. And in saying that, are we going to see Bang at any expos now, the Arnold Classic or Olympia, or you've completely separated yourself, or do you still have a toe in those waters?
Well, we don't know whether that's a viable thing going forward here because of COVID, right? The Arnold would be a COVID factory if it was ever put back on. We understand, too, that there might be a little tension between Arnold and Jim Lorimer. But I think those days, at least for now, at least for the next year or so, have passed. Too many people crowded together. Even if COVID wasn't around, it's just, I don't think it's a good situation where sometimes in a show, just as a joke, I'd be in the crowd and I could lift my feet up, and guess what? I stay standing because people are so packed together, right? As a joke. So we missed those times. I don't know if they'll ever come back. But we pivoted anyhow. We pivoted away from all the bodybuilding shows, the fitness expo, everything like that, and went into gaming and went into other genres that were much more successful to us, festivals, everything like that. And again, you pivot towards who your consumers are, which are not only millennials, but more important, Generation Z. Gen Z, 24 and younger, in marketing, we have 82 people now, and at least 40 of them are Gen Z. Because if that's who's buying energy drinks, and you don't have them on staff and they don't have a voice, then you're wrong. And I think everybody, the problem is they've never acclimated to listening to, I know a lot of our CFOs, we fired 7 CFOs. They've never acclimated to listening to an influencer, or they wouldn't pay the influencers because they're getting like a $20,000 or $40,000 check a month. They couldn't wrap their mind around it. And I go, why didn't you pay the influencers? Well, I don't need to get paid. I go, are you serious? So in accounting, once I had to make a rule that I go, accounting is not getting paid until they pay all these influencers. So they had to wait an extra week for their paycheck. I go, don't do it again. I go, they have to pay their bills. This is how they pay their bills. You might not believe in what they're doing. You might be jealous because they're getting such a big check. The world's changed, pivot. So, it's a different world. Experiential marketing, I love it. I used to crowd surf and everything like that. And I learned how to do it from this kid because, we get a little stiff, right?
Yeah.
So I see this kid, we put him on stage, and he weighs about $120 and he's dancing. And anybody that's dancing in the crowd, good, we bring him on stage. And so he just turns around backwards and just dives into the crowd. And I looked at the crowd and I go, it's so thick that I'll never hit the floor. So I just dove into the crowd, I started crowd surfing, and it makes for great content.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, we miss those days.
Yeah. And, I've noticed, we went, myself and several friends and my fiance, last year, we went to EDC, huge music festival in Vegas. And I noticed what you'd done was perfect. When people get off the plane at Las Vegas airport, as you come down the escalators, you had the Bang energy drinks vending machines there, right by the carousels where people go to purchase the banks, go and get their suitcases. So you're there front and center, getting in people's faces. And we'll wrap this up here pretty soon. But one question in regards to your marketing: do you think with your marketing, one of the reasons you've been so successful is because you're fearless in the way that you put yourself out there and the product?
Explain that.
You're very fearless. You're very upfront. For instance, if you're talking about these lawsuits, you don't hide behind it and just keep it on the paper. You're very transparent and you'll put it out there. And I think you're just very fearless in everything that you do, and including your marketing. And I'm just wondering, is that one of the reasons that you still continue to grow at the rate that you do and separate yourself from the rest of the companies and the brands out there?
Absolutely. And that's why you're successful. Today's consumer demands transparency and accountability. And that's why Apple was so successful. Steve Jobs was out there, right? They want accessibility. Where is Monster's CEO? Where's Red Bull's CEO? I just posted them yesterday. You might want to see that. It's called Who's Your Daddy? But, where are they? They're not accessible. They can't be, because if people have to be able to ask you questions and you answer them, this, social media. And so the company that's accessible to the consumer, it's accountable, that tells your why, that shares everything with them, those are the successful companies. Those are the companies of the future. That's why your company's successful, because you're out there, you're accessible, people know who you are in the industry. There's no one in the industry that doesn't know who you are. And there's only about a handful of CEOs that are accessible, accountable, and busting their butt like you are, like we are, to put out high quality scientific information, longevity information, mind, muscle, appearance, performance. It's all there. It's all here, right? You have to provide value beyond just trying to sell people a product. You have to be organic. Kris just didn't jump up and go, you know what? I'm going to make a supplement to make money. No, you paid your dues, right? You paid your dues, research. And you are where you are today because of that. You're authentic. Your branding's organic, just like ours is. I didn't wake up one morning and go, I want to make a supplement, an energy drink and get rich. Our energy drinks are the same as our supplements, where they're performance-enhancing energy drinks. We invented the performance energy category because it's just not a regular energy drink. It was a drink that's, like you said, it's hybridized. It's a fuse between a supplement and an energy drink that increases performance. And that's what we pivoted to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that because it wasn't the intention up front. It's similar with my background, but I never thought I'd be on social media, to be honest with you. I started getting into that realm, I'd say, when I was writing for Weeder Publications, then later the editor-in-chief of bodybuilding.com. And it wasn't until the then founder, Ryan DeLuca, forced me in front of the camera when I figured, okay, now I have a responsibility. This is where I'm going to have to put my hand in my own pocket and start testing the supplements that I'm going to be suggesting to people. And that's when I realized, okay, I need to start a supplement company. I have to put something out there that I know that I can put my hand on my heart and go, this meets label claims. This is what I say online to do what it does, okay? And I think, in a company that, in a industry that you rightly so mentioned is oversaturated, it needs that, and that's what's distinguished yourself because you've been transparent. You are the CEO, and if anybody has a question, you can answer it. There's no doubt about it. But anyway, thank you so much for having me here, Jack, and answering all these questions. I'm sure this is going to be very educational and inspiring for a lot of people out there that are going to be listening and watching this. So thank you very much for your time.
My
brother.
pleasure.
I really appreciate
and congratulations on all your success and everything. The same way you started, I'm glad you brought that out. It's the same way I started. Look, you got to make something that you trust, that is real, because a lot of people are depending on you and counting on you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. You're truly an inspiration to myself, brother. I appreciate it.
Likewise, you're an inspiration as well.
All right. Thank you, Jack. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Jack. That was great, mate.
It was awesome.
Really good. I got to learn a lot of things about you then. Because I tell you what, I was looking online prior to this. You haven't done that many interviews. I was surprised that there wasn't that much information out there that I could learn upon. So I thought, okay, well, this is going to be a learning experience for me then.
Yeah, this was great.
Yeah, appreciate it, brother. Thank you very much once again.